Across centuries, food has been more than sustenance. It has been a quiet architect of history. Empires expanded not only for land, but for spices. The Silk Road carried cinnamon and pepper alongside ideas and languages, and a single potato blight reshaped the demographics of nations. Cooking itself has always been a force of culture, connection, and change. Royal courts flaunted their power through extravagant banquets, and immigrant communities preserved their identities through recipes passed on from one kitchen to another. In the aftermath of wars, famine, and migration, the act of sharing a meal became a declaration of survival and resilience. Even the simplest dish, bread torn and passed around a table, has time and time again reminded people of who they are and where they come from. Recipes are more than instruction. They are stories carried forward, connecting generations who will never meet. And every so often, a cook or a teacher emerges who can translate those stories for a new time and place. Someone whose curiosity and passion invite an entire culture to taste the world differently. This is Watch Her Cook.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Danielle.
Welcome back to Watch Her Cook, a podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible lives of women who have taken their power back throughout history.
I am so reminded right away of you during that introduction, and not because I think of you as like a cook or chef or someone who really enjoys food. Well, you like snacks.
I do like snacks.
But for your wedding, you requested that people brought a recipe that was special to them.
Yeah. I thought that was something that would be really meaningful because and part of my thought process with that was that I saw a lot of weddings that had guest books, and those were great because you get to write a message to the couple, and that's really special. But what I was finding is a lot of people get those guest books and then they put them on their shelves and then they open them like every couple of years. And I wanted something that was more intimate than that, and something that I would actually utilize in my home, and something that I could have that was tangible, that would remind me of that person. And one of those things I thought of was food. And what is passed down in generations of families is family recipes. And I think that those kind of get lost because now in our time, we have Google and we can just look up whatever recipes we want, where I think our parents' generation and grandparents' generation, they would write down everything and they would pass those down, or verbally they would pass them down. So you would have like our family Italian sauce or our family, whatever it is you would have. And I don't really have that. And I wanted that for my family. So that is why I decided that a recipe book would be a fun thing to do.
Well, I think it's great because you can cook and consume dishes that remind you of certain people. And I think what people choose to share as their recipe kind of says a lot about them too, which is really cool. So I know you just said that you don't really have, like, your family historically hasn't really had like a dish or a recipe or something that cemented through the generations. But is there something that like just reminds you of your family or your childhood or something, even if it's not like this traditional dish that your great grandmother?
There is one thing that kind of reminds me of my childhood, and it's probably because it was one of the first things I learned how to bake, and it was Yorkshire puddings. And have you had that before?
No, I haven't.
So it's essentially like it's like a biscuit, like a bread muffin biscuit thing. It's traditionally, I think it's more of a European British dish, but when I was a kid, we used to always do Sunday dinners, and my mom was married to someone from England. And every Sunday dinner, we would always do Yorkshire puddings, and you make them in a muffin pan, and it's a lot of like flour and dough, and they circle up so there's a bowl in it when it's done, and you would pour gravy on it, and it would open. And
Okay, I was thinking this was a dessert.
No, it goes with your dinner. So it would be on the side of, we would do like meat, potatoes, and a vegetable. And then you'd have Yorkshire puddings that you would fill with gravy.
Interesting. Okay. My mind was in the dessert world.
Yeah, I guess pudding is
misleading.
Yeah, very misleading.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have like a family staple?
The first thing that comes to my mind, I have two things. One of them is crazy. And if my mom is listening to this, she probably already knows or is going to laugh. But when I was a child, my mom makes me peanut butter pies for my birthday. And they're like
fun.
a frozen pie dessert that has like an Oreo crust and a lot of like whipped cream and peanut butter and a melted chocolate like topping, and you chill it and you serve it chilled, and it's so good. I mean, it'll make you really sick if you have more than like
it's like
two
too
pieces.
Sugary.
It's so sugary. It's so dense, but it's really good. And that just has always in my mind been significant when it comes to birthday celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is so crazy. I actually looked it up a little bit ago before we recorded this, just going over notes and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. So this is more of like from my stepdad's side of things. My mom and my stepdad got married when I was 5. So like this isn't a new thing. So I did also grow up with this. But for Thanksgiving, there is always what is called, and I don't know how you're going to react, but it's called ass pick.
Okay, not appetizing immediately, but I'm curious.
Okay, if you look up pictures of this, it looks disgusting.
It's
like ASPIC is how it's spelled. And it's like, it can take on a lot of different forms, but it's basically like this gelatin mold with like stuff in it. Like
this
floating.
Looks like when you leave
it looks
your
like cat food
out. Yeah.
And I guess like you can have different meats and like weird things in it. But for us, it's like it's like 80% red Jell-O. And at the bottom is like cut up walnuts and apples and fruits.
Okay. I guess that makes more sense for Jell-O because one of the first pictures that comes up is like a meat dish that's just in Jell-O.
And it's
it
like
looks
green.
Like it's turkey and peas and carrots, but it's all encompassed in a thing of Jell-O.
Yeah, it's like suspended in this gelatin mixture, and it looks so unappetizing. And it also has a very unappetizing name. It's like, do you want some ass pick? It's like, no, thank you.
Like, what? No, I don't. It kind of looks like a shepherd's pie, but instead of crust, it's Jell-O.
That's a good comparison, yeah.
Don't knock it till you try it. Is it good?
I don't know if it's that good. It's just always there.
It's just tradition.
It's just there. So it's like, I guess I'll have some ass pick. It's like, I don't want a lot of it. It's just like, all right, great. I really like the peanut butter pie portion of
that sounds great.
Yeah, that's great. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about food and its importance. And I think when we think about food and its history and the people who are associated with cuisine here in America, especially, I mean, for our time, it's probably Martha Stewart. Like she's like
the it girl
when it comes to cooking and homemaking and all that stuff. But before her was a woman that is even more so, and that's Julia Child.
Yes, and for the first time, we're talking about cooking on Watch Her Cook. So, diving into Julia Child's story, she was an American author and television personality who revolutionized home cooking in the United States. With her joyful energy and approachable style, she introduced French cuisine to American kitchens through her most famous book, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, and her landmark TV series, The French Chef.
Julia Carolyn McWilliams was born on August 15th, 1912 in Pasadena, California. Both of her parents were gifted with a healthy inheritance, allowing Julia and her younger siblings to grow up in a privileged household with assistance from nannies and servants. She attended private schools, including a Montessori program, and later the Catherine Branson School, focusing on academics like math, English, history, and French, rather than domestic science, which was more common in public schools for girls at the time. Private schools prioritized teaching their female students about academics and cultural subjects to prepare their students to engage in intellectual conversation and society events, as it was likely they would grow up to marry rich and have the role of hosting. After graduating from Smith College in 1934 with a degree in history, Julia hoped to become a writer or novelist. Career options for affluent young women in the 1930s were limited, and she hadn't yet had a serious romantic relationship. partly because at 6'2", she towered over many potential suitors.
I love a woman who's really tall and still wears heels. It's like, you know what? Men can feel uncomfortable. I'm beautiful.
Just going back to the really quick, it's like, hey, we're going to teach you how to hold intellectual conversations and teach you about all of these cultural subjects and things, not for your own education and advancement, but because you need to be able to talk to people when you're hosting parties at your house as a wife.
You almost got there.
You were so close.
You were so close. Women should have education, but it shouldn't only be to host parties. Although it's a good party trick, I guess, to be smart and intelligent. But yeah, you were so close. In search of work, Julia moved to New York City with 2 roommates and worked as a copywriter. She later joked that paying about $80 a month in rent felt steep for the Depression era, and that life in New York shifted her politics from the Republican values of her upbringing towards a more liberal outlook. At 24, Julia fell in love with the first time with a man named Tom, a pseudonym she used in her biographies, but the romance ended painfully when he left her for a mutual friend whom he soon married. Heartbroken, Julia returned to Pasadena. And it's also why you need your education, for when Tom leaves you for your best friend, you are still intelligent and don't just have wife duties.
That's true. She also had a pretty significant leg up with her family's financial situation too. But yeah, I agree with your statement regardless. At the time of her return, Julia's mother fell ill with high blood pressure and passed away only 2 months later. In her mother's absence, Julia's father asked her to take on more responsibilities at home. She stepped into that role while leveraging her connections to freelance as a writer, contributing fashion articles to magazines. Julia's less common height made finding stylish clothes a challenge, and this gave her a distinctive perspective on women's fashion. Julia eventually took a job in PR and began to find solace in her singledom, which was unusual for women of her age at the time. She even rejected a proposal from a local, wealthy Pasadena businessman due to her indifference with getting married. When Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1941, Julia felt compelled to serve. Too tall for both the Women's Army Corps and the Navy's WAVE program, she instead joined the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, the precursor to the CIA. She began as a typist in Washington, D.C., but her intelligence and organizational skills quickly earned her a promotion to top secret researcher. She joined the Emergency Sea Rescue Equipment Section, or ESRES, and helped to experiment on ways for soldiers to survive at sea. One notable contribution that Julia made to the ESRES was helping to develop shark repellent, a food that was unpleasant for sharks to encounter, and used to ensure that they avoided accidentally setting off mines placed in the water. She would later joke that this was her first, quote, cooking job, though in truth, it was more chemistry than cuisine. I think that's one of the funnest facts I learned about Julia through this process.
That she made shark food or repellent.
Yeah. It just speaks to her diversity of work experience. Like even just at this point in her life, she was in PR, she worked in fashion as a writer, and now she's in the OSS, and now she's repelling sharks.
She's done it all.
She's one of those people that I feel like today, if I like tangentially knew her and I like followed her on Instagram but didn't really know her and I was going through her stories, I'd be like, what are you doing now?
Yeah. Where are you in the world? What do you do for work?
What are you up to? Yeah, right. What do you do for work? Because I can't keep up.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
As the war went on, Julia was sent on a voyage to India with thousands of male soldiers and approximately 12 women. The voyage landed in Sri Lanka, then known as Ceylon. Here, Julia was appointed as the head registrar and processed reports from American agents stationed throughout Asia. While stationed in Kandy, Julia met Paul Child, who was also working for the OSS. Initially, the two were apprehensive of one another. Julia described Paul as somewhat disheveled, and Paul described Julia's bubbly personality as verging on hysterical. However, as the two got to know each other better, it became clear that their idiosyncrasies provided balance to one another. They ended up being transferred to Kunming, China, as part of the same OSS team, and their romantic relationship began to grow.
In China, Julia was exposed to several different types of cuisines, as dining was a passion of Paul's. She highlighted the food in Beijing as remarkably executed, though simple, and this appreciation for food began to take root. When the Second World War ended, Julia and Paul returned to Washington as a couple. Julia decided that, were she to become Paul's wife, she should take some cooking lessons to better her domestic skills. Her initial attempts at cooking were apparently not well received by Paul, nor herself, but he decided to marry her anyway, highlighting in his own words that he would rather have Julia than a woman who could cook. Little did he know, he had signed up for both. I just love it. He married her anyway, even though she couldn't cook.
I'm honored. Thanks so much.
Al married me anyway, even though I can slightly cook.
You can slightly cook.
Slightly. I'm learning.
Does he do more cooking than you, or is it pretty evenly? I feel like he does.
Yeah, he does a lot more cooking than me.
A couple of years into their marriage, Paul was transferred to Paris as an exhibits officer for the U.S. Information Agency, resulting in the couple moving. While living in Paris, Julia had a meal at a restaurant named La Couronne, which she credits as the muse for her culinary revelation. A classic French dish of sole fish, lightly floured, fried, and dressed with parsley, butter, and lemon, was, quote, an opening up of the soul and the spirit for Julia. Struck again by the excellent execution of a simple recipe, Julia realized that she wanted to learn more about food, and not just the basics. She wanted to understand how French chefs exerted discipline into creating delicate balances in their cuisine.
And now she's on a whole nother adventure, from her writing to her shark repellent. And now she's diving into her chef role, which I think is really fun because she's in her 30s now at this point, and she's found a whole new passion, which I think is even ingrained in us now I remember being in high school and it was like, figure out what you want to do and study in college because you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life. And
the pressure when choosing not only a college, but a major, that was like, I remember it just being so cut and dry. Like, well, what do you like? Because you're about to study for it for the next 4 years, pay X amount of money, and hopefully like you're good at it because that's what you're signing up for the rest of your career.
Yeah, hopefully you're good at it and hopefully you enjoy it, because I remember our teachers being like, you will spend more time at work than you will at home with your families.
Yeah.
Make sure you enjoy whatever you're picking. And you're 18, you're fresh out of high school. You've only known school. You barely know the workforce. I had a job as an ice cream scooper and a dishwasher. And then it's like, okay, now what do you want to do for your professional career for the rest of your life? It's like, come on, why is it so cut and dry like that? Let people explore, let people go through phases. People don't have to choose one career path. And I think things are different now than other generations, like our parents and grandparents and stuff, because they had incentives to stay in the same field. And now they say that you should quit your job and go to another company or another role every 2 years because they don't have the same benefits anymore. They don't give the same type of raises. You don't get pensions as much as you used to. You don't get the same type of retirement. So you're not really set in the ways that you used to be.
Well, that opportunity to climb the ladder is non-existent now.
Yeah.
You know, like working from the bottom up. And if you stay here long enough and work hard enough, like you'll make it is not a thing anymore like it used to be. So I agree. But like also just touching upon the fact that she's in her 30s at this point. So she's roughly our age when she has this meal, this like pivotal moment of her life. And she's like, huh, I really like this and this is amazing and I want to lean into this more. And, it's funny because even though we're just like, yeah, you should quit your job every 2 years and do this and that and whatever, we're not saying like you should totally revamp your entire life and go in a completely different direction like she's about to do. And even now where it's more accepted, even if you did want to do that, there's still some apprehension of like, okay, but I'm in my mid-30s and I've come this far in this particular path. Like it's scary to change or start something new, or can I really do this? Is it worth it? And I think Julia's story, as everyone knows her as a chef. Did you know that she was doing shark repellent? Did you know that she was a fashion writer? Did you know any of these other things? No, you know her for something that she discovered in this time frame of her life.
It's a really fun example of letting the world inspire you and go with it. Sometimes things just come to you in life later and you figure out your passions at a different time.
Yeah, you don't have to like be born into this world with a talent or certain set of skills that is going to determine what you do with the rest of your life. Like I think that can come along later.
Yeah. And if you are, that's great. You figured it out. You're set. But for the majority
we're happy
of us,
for you.
We're
just
so
kidding.
happy for you. Wow, you found your purpose. But if you're still looking for your purpose, it's okay to find it throughout any period in your life. So, with this whole new purpose and inspiration, Julia decided to enroll in the prestigious Cordon Bleu cooking school, which was established in 1895. She was initially put in a homemaker's class, which covered basic skills like boiling an egg. And frustrated with this, Julia convinced the school to put her in a professional class where she would be the only woman amidst 11 other men. In this intensive course, Julia spent her mornings learning professional skills, her afternoons observing and mimicking demonstrations by their professor, and when she got home, she would use her spare time to recreate the class demos in her and Paul's Paris kitchen. Paul's letters to his brother often amusingly dictated Julia's journey with cooking when he wrote sentences like, "If you could see Julia stuffing pepper and lard up the arsehole of a pigeon, you'd see just how profoundly affected she has been by the cordon bleu."
While at the cordon bleu, Julia's teacher, Max Bungard, began to notice her drive and took a liking to her. Outside of class, he would take her around to his favorite vendors in Paris and introduce her to specialty ingredients and vendors. He even gave her private lessons to fine-tune her knife skills. Although Julia initially failed her final exam, she passed the second time, using the techniques that Bungard had bestowed upon her. She graduated from the Cordon Bleu with a diploma around the age of 40. With cooking now as her life's main focus, Julia joined a women's cooking club in Paris, Le Cercle des Gourmets. It operated like a book club. Each month, one of the members would cook a meal for the rest. It was in this social circle that Julia met Simone Beck.
At the time, Simone was collaborating with her friend Lucette Bertel on a cookbook that was intended to introduce French cuisine to the American public. After getting to know Julia and warming up to her, Simone decided that having an American consultant on board would help to make the book more marketable. Julia began assisting Simone and Lucette with their project, ensuring that the American perspective would be adequately catered to. Upon her examination of Simone and Lucette's initial draft, Julia was critical of their choices. Julia decided they should change the order of the chapters and even went through recipe by recipe to test and retest what the authors had come up with. Simone admired Julia's determination to ensure that the book was the best that it could be.
While tirelessly working on the book, Paul was continually relocated throughout Europe. Julia tagged along as he moved around to Marseille, then Bonn in Germany, and finally to Oslo, Norway. During her time in Marseille, Julia continued to perform research for the eventual cookbook, consulting locals on their versions of the recipes that were to be included. She often found that locals disagreed amongst each other about what the, quote, right way to cook a specific dish was, but each was so insistent about their own version of the recipe that it was difficult to find the right answer. Which I think
that's so common.
I was just going to say that exact same thing. I'm like, well, tell me something I don't know, because everyone has their own twist or tweak or take on certain recipes. It's like, oh, well, I use this brand of ingredient.
Take
somebody
chocolate
else
chip cookies. Like one person's going to be like, I use this flour. I add a little bit of salt. I add this much sugar. The secret ingredient is extra chunky chocolate chips. Everyone has like their little special touch, which is why I think that family recipes are the things that are passed down and so special, because you get those little extra special touches that are thrown in there.
The time of my life. I never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick, AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
Fall's here, kids are back in school, vacations are over, and cozy season has officially started, which for me means it's Bombas season. You probably know Bombas for their socks, and yes, they are hands down the most comfortable socks ever, but they've got so much more. Slippers, tees, underwear, all made from premium materials that actually make sense for this time of year. We're talking merino wool that keeps you warm when it's chilly but cool when it's not, Supima cotton that's softer and more breathable than regular cotton, and those classic durable rag wool socks that just scream fall. And their slippers, amazing. The Sherpa-lined Sunday slippers and those gripper slippers make it really hard to leave the house. But the thing I love most about Bombas is their mission, because for every single item you buy, Bombas donates one to someone experiencing homelessness. Over 150 million items have been donated already, which is amazing. And if that's not enough, they've got a happiness guarantee. So if you're not 100% into what you got, they'll make it right. No risk, all reward. I've been living in my Bombas socks and tees. They're softer, they last longer, and honestly, I love knowing my purchase helps someone else. They just feel different from other basics. Head over to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/audio. Code AUDIO at checkout.
In 1955, Paul was recalled to Washington, D.C. for an interview as Senator Joseph McCarthy began to conduct investigations into government employees to weed out communist spies. During his interrogation, Paul was asked about his government activities from the war, nearly 15 years prior, and was even accused of homosexual activities. Julia waited back in Europe for Paul's return, communicating to him through telegrams and phone calls.
Paul was eventually cleared of his alleged suspicions, but the event led Julia to become more outspoken against McCarthyism and the right-wing politics of the time. When she received a letter from Smith College asking her and other alumni to hold off on donations until the school's suspected communist staff were interrogated, she replied to them saying, quote, "We are fighting for our hard-won liberty and our freedom, for our Constitution and the due process of our laws, and for the right to differ in ideas, religion, and politics. I am convinced that in your zeal to fight against our enemies, you too have forgotten what you are fighting for." Good for her.
That is so applicable to today.
It's so applicable.
You can cut and paste that, and if I didn't know that was a quote from Julia Child, and you said that some senator or lawmaker or somebody in the government right now said that today, I would not even blink an eye.
Basically, let people be people. So while Paul was never found guilty of any foul play against the U.S. government, several of their friends from Ceylon, as well as their fellow Americans stationed in Europe, were let go due to potential affiliation with the Soviets. Paul continued to work with the government until 1961, when he retired and he and Julia moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts. Upon returning to the United States, Julia was mortified by the state of American dining culture. Having spent most of the 1940s and 1950s in Europe, the Childs were unfamiliar with America's most recent fascination, fast food. Convenience food culture had dominated the landscape of American diets, and Julia, who had just devoted so much of her life to learning the art of fine French dining, became even more motivated to bring her cooking expertise to her home country. At the time, the Kennedys had just entered the White House, and Jackie Kennedy, who was a trend-setting style icon of the era, had hired a French chef to work in the White House. This gave Julia the confidence that the public would take an interest in this foreign cuisine.
Julia began pitching the book that her, Simone, and Lucette were still working on over a decade in to several publishers. It was eventually picked up by an American publisher, Alfred A. Naff, in 1961 and released under the name Mastering the Art of French Cooking. The 726-page book quickly became a bestseller, receiving critical acclaim for making fine cuisine accessible. To this day, the book is still in print and is considered a seminal work of culinary literature. In order to promote the book, Julia appeared on a show on Boston's national education TV network called I've Been Reading. The show was intended to deliver book reviews, and for Mastering the Art of French Cooking, they decided Julia should do a cooking demonstration. While on the show, Julia showed the host and audience at home how to make an omelet. Her usual charisma shone through, and the TV station received several letters asking to see Julia on screen again. It was clear that she was a natural.
I love that too, because I can just imagine that when she got back from Europe to find that everyone was eating McDonald's and was obsessed with this fast food culture. And I don't know if it was specifically McDonald's, but that's just the first one that comes to mind. I'm sure she was horrified. Like, what are you eating?
Yeah, it's like, what's that French saying? Sacre bleu, or whatever the heck. Have you heard that? Sacre bleu or something? I think it's like, oh my God. Kind of like I'm aghast at this. Like, I'm shocked. And I just like what I think of, and now it's harder because, I mean, we travel a lot. We're abroad a lot. We eat in different countries quite often. And we do see just on the streets and stuff, unfortunately, American fast food chains have permeated kind of the world everywhere that we've been, almost, with a few rare exceptions. But I can't remember if we've ever eaten fine French cuisine. But even being in France or other countries, and just the ingredients they use and the care that they utilize when cooking their dishes, not only is it a different experience of actually consuming the meal and sitting down to have it, but also the way your body feels is just so much better.
You can really tell a difference. And I think a lot of that stems from the US allows a lot of really scary ingredients and chemicals into everyday food that doesn't need that. And I think one of just a classic example is that if you grab a bag of chips in Europe and you grab the same bag in the United States, the list in Europe is going to be potatoes, oil, salt. You grab the bag in the US and it's going to be a list of preservatives that you can't pronounce with potatoes and salt.
Yeah, at the very end.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, there's
it's
also
like,
potatoes
partially.
in here.
Yeah, somewhere. It's scary. And I remember growing up watching cooking shows with my grandmother too, just them being on the TV and seeing people do these things. So it's cool to see how she was the beginning of that.
Well, Julia's successful performance on TV landed her own show a year later when the French chef premiered on the station WGBH in the summer of 1962. It was picked up as a regular series and ended up running for 10 years, receiving many awards, including an Emmy for Best Educational Series. It was also the first show in American history to be captioned for the deaf and hard of hearing.
The show was touted for its unique approach to the typical cooking show. Julia had unconventional methods about cooking in the kitchen, giving her audience leeway with some of the techniques, ingredient variations, and offering helpful tips to make the recipes easier. Julia is often remembered for teaching her audiences how to think about cooking rather than obliging them to follow an exact recipe. Her approach resonated well with viewers. She even drank wine while cooking on camera. This down-to-earth disposition was even parodied on Saturday Night Live in 1978, where Dan Aykroyd impersonated Julia, cutting her thumb off while cooking chicken and keeping a calm composure throughout the dangerous ordeal.
Her foray into television began to make Julia Child a household name. Her TV show led to the creation of a second book, The French Chef Cookbook, which featured recipes pulled from different episodes. Julia continued to work with Simone Beck, and they published a few more cookbooks together, even one where Paul contributed handmade illustrations. Her stardom continued with an appearance on the cover of Time magazine and even a filmed special from the White House, all while she was in her 50s.
Beyond the media buzz around Julia, her cooking show played an important role in drawing attention to women's issues of the time. Since her show was filmed and unedited, Julia often made mistakes in the kitchen, forgot about certain items, and had a relatively messy cooking experience. She would carry on with a good sense of humor, reminding her viewers that nobody was judging them for this. To Julia, cooking was an imperfect experience where mistakes happened and were meant to be embraced. This honest and approachable tone became inspirational for the women who watched her, sometimes feeling inadequate in the kitchen or that they needed to imbue an image of perfection publicly, which Julia staunchly disregarded with her platform. She is often regarded as having helped remove the fear of cooking for many people.
She was also outspoken throughout her career about the obsession Americans had with diet culture, likely a response to the emergence of fast food. She was often chastised for her use of cream and butter in recipes, which were common French ingredients. In an interview she did with the New York Times in 1990, Julia responded to this American diet fervor by stating, quote, "Everybody is overreacting. If fear of food continues, it will be the death of gastronomy in the United States. Fortunately, the French don't suffer from this same hysteria we do. We should enjoy food and have fun. It is one of the simplest and nicest pleasures in life."
That brings back my own trauma. The 90s diet culture. Oh, the worst.
Okay, this is so embarrassing. But I remember in high school, very vividly in high school, it was probably my sophomore or junior year, and I was obsessed. This is like also the height of Jessica Simpson and the Newlyweds.
Okay.
Because Jessica Simpson was like the face of this for a little while, the Special K diet. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
I was like a rail. I'm petite. I'm like 5'3" already, and I am more on like the more slender side, at least for most of my life I was. But I like went out of my way as a high schooler to eat a Special K diet that was just like cereal for breakfast that was like 110 calories, the Special K bars as snacks, and then like just a normal dinner. But like that's it.
Yeah.
Or lean cuisines. Oh my, don't get me started with lean cuisines. That's all I ate. And I remember like just being so obsessed with making sure that I was skinny.
I remember in Hollywood, and there was the Jessica Simpsons, but then there was also all of the other Hollywood stars where they really promoted that seeing bones was pretty. It wasn't being strong. I know that we've had a shift. I think we're trending back towards the skinny right now, unfortunately. We were sitting in a spot where
we were so
the saying was strong is the new skinny. But in the 90s, it was bones. And I remember it would be, you could see everyone's collarbones. You could see their sternum bone, like across, and hip bones protruding out. And I remember specifically seeing someone talking about their diet regimen, and they would over exercise, only drink water, and not eat food. And they would run for a really long time on a treadmill. And it was a celebrity that was talking about it. And then I remember as a teenage kid being like, whenever I would exercise, I'd be like, don't eat now that you've exercised, because
or
now
you were like
can say
equating
skinny.
it. Like, oh, I just ran X amount of miles, which equals I'm burning off one slice of pizza or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You were always counting. And it was like, why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah. And I agree with you, though. I think we are, not we, you and I, but we as like a cultural whole are reverting back to the skinny thing. And I see it all over the place with the younger generation. And we were doing so, I think, like towards the end of our college days, up until maybe a year or two ago, like things were going okay. And
it's
like
relatively new.
Body positivity and like embracing how you are and not starving yourself and X, Y, and Z. And now it's like, everything from like Ozempic to different procedures to like, making sure
there's so many diet pills that are out again right now, which had flooded our scene in the 90s.
Well, I can understand why Julia was upset with that. She's like, these recipes call for butter and cream. I don't know what you want me to do.
Eat food. Eat. That's what we're meant to do as people, is eat. Enjoy
And
your
I also
food.
love, like, the way she said that quote was clearly more elegant. But essentially, she was like, this is an American problem. Like, the rest of the world does not think like this.
Yeah. Stop eating fast food and you can eat the cream and cheese and not have to worry about it.
While Julia continued to be touted as a chef on television, a term she claimed didn't suit her because she had never worked in a restaurant. Julia often referred to herself as a cookbook author and a TV personality, exemplified by the 6 subsequent shows that followed The French Chef, including Julia Child and Company, Julia Child and More Company, Dinner at Julia's, and The French Chef in France, which was one of television's first cooking and travel shows. While her career continued to skyrocket, Paul remained retired. He supported his wife's pursuit and designed a home kitchen for her, which eventually became the set of future television shows like Baking with Julia. He paid attention to several details in his design, most notably ensuring that the counters were slightly higher than normal to accommodate Julia's height.
Later in life, Julia was approached by the Smithsonian to have Paul's design kitchen immortalized in their museum. In August of 2002, Julia Child's kitchen became an exhibit and is still on display in the National Mall today. Paul sadly fell ill in the late 80s, suffering several strokes. He spent the last 5 years of his life struggling with health issues until he passed away in 1994, leaving Julia a widow.
For Julia, Paul's death took some of the joy out of her life, remarking that she felt only half alive. Yet she had no interest in retiring quite yet. She continued to appear on television and write instructional cookbooks while living in Cambridge. In 2001, she decided to sell her and Paul's home and move back to California, where she bought a small apartment in Montecito with a much smaller kitchen. She celebrated her 90th birthday a year later, and so did many restaurants around the country in her honor. The Wine and Food Museum in Napa Valley, Copia, also renamed their dining area Julia's Kitchen for this celebration. By now, Julia was walking with a cane and slightly bent over. Despite this, she had just wrapped up another TV taping and book tour. Her determination to continue cooking kept her going until she was unable to. And on August 13th, 2004, she passed away in her sleep. The night before, she had a bowl of French onion soup, which fittingly became her last meal.
Julia received many accolades and awards throughout her life for her cookbooks, television appearances, and philanthropic work. She even founded the American Institute of Food and Wine, which is still to this day makes its mission to educate the wonders and pleasures of food and wine to the American public. During an interview with Time magazine of her immense passion for food, Julia said, quote, "I never feel lonely in the kitchen. Food is very friendly. Just looking at a potato, I like to pat it. There's something so pleasant about a big baking potato or a whole bunch of peas in their shells. To me, the kitchen has never stopped being a place just full of possibilities and pleasures."
It's clear that Julia devoted her life to ensuring that Americans saw food in the same way as her. Julia Child is remembered today as the bubbly television personality who helped teach a generation of women to be unafraid of the seemingly daunting tasks asked of her in the kitchen. More so, she showed that imperfection could be charming, which became an important way of thinking for the feminist movement that soon followed her rise to fame. As an inspiration to women everywhere, Julia Child, both literally and figuratively, was someone who cooked, and we are all better off for having watched her do it.
I love her story. I think it's so fun. I think it's so inspirational. And I also, one of the things that I really love about her is that she makes, of course, she becomes this fantastic chef in her life, but she doesn't make it feel that way. She feels like someone that you would cook with in your own home. She feels like she is you, where she's making mistakes in the kitchen. She has these beautiful dishes, but it's not an art. It's just an act of life, which I really appreciate about her.
Yeah, an act of life that she's doing with love because she cares about it and thinks it's important. And I think drawing that into our timeline and something that I think we can all relate to is seeing content creators online. And the more down to earth they are and the more willing they are to show their mistakes and mishaps and mess ups, I feel like you're more drawn to them because creators who kind of fabricate this perfect life or routine or whatever, aesthetic, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that might be pretty to watch, but you don't connect with them as a person.
It's not believable.
Yeah, you're just like watching like that's like a not real thing.
Yeah.
But when people are more like Julia, you're more inclined to connect with them as an individual and take them as like, oh, this could be my friend, or like I see parts of myself in this person, and I'm more willing to just like connect with them on a different level. So I think that she tapped into that so effortlessly, and in a way she wasn't even thinking about it. She was just like,
this is who I am.
Yeah, this is who I am, and take it or leave it. And a lot of people took it, and she's been remembered for it. And I think that's really cool. And I think that, did you ever see the movie about her that Meryl Streep played her in?
No.
She did such a fantastic job now, like learning more about who Julia was, just like her bubbly personality and her laughing and the way she connected with people and things like that. So if you're looking to watch something about Julia Child that is like more lighthearted and goes over her life like this, I think that's a good movie to watch.
Do you know what the name of it is?
I think it's simply called Julia.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love Meryl Streep too.
Yeah. Well, movie night. There you go.
Well, everyone, thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for tuning in to watch her cook.
If you're looking to dive a little deeper, we've dropped some sources for you in the description. This marks the end of season 1. Thank you for following along. We've really enjoyed bringing all of these incredible women's stories to you. We hope their lives have inspired you and that sharing them sparks your desire to keep exploring the accomplishments of women throughout history.
And of course, a big shout out to Sick Bird Productions, who produces our podcast and helps bring these stories to life. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Watch Her Cook Podcast, leave a review, and subscribe to hear all of the inspiring stories we have covered. Just a reminder, empowered women empower the world. Now let's go cook.
I had the time of my life. I never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick, AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.